All right, we're back again. The last video got cut off because I ran out of some space on my computer, but I went and cleaned it up. So we're back on making the wing skins. So this will be tape 2. So where we left off was we had trued up the bottom piece of sheeting, the top piece of sheeting, and now what I'm doing is getting ready to cut the middle piece of sheeting that goes in. That'll be like a triangle. So I got the edge set up. I lined up my top sheeting. I marked it. Now I'm going to take it off and cut it. All right. So we do want to go slightly oversized if we can. About 1/8 of an inch. Where the hell did it? Where did I put it? Oh, that's a good question. Alright, so we'll put a new blade in. Always when cutting anything critical or wing sheeting, I always try to put a new blade in just because I want to make sure I get the best possible cut I can. So I use Excel blades, number 11. Alright, so that's in. I put my straight edge on and I will carefully cut. Just take your time in making these cuts because these seams are critical to having good seams. Alright, let's see how we line up here. Okay. That's good, that's good. A little bit of a gap here. I think I got this back. No? Let me just check this. Nope, a little bit of a... Alright. So sometimes, because wood is a living thing, sometimes it springs. So I just take another sliver off to be perfectly straight. Alright, that's pretty good. Just want to trim this edge up a little bit more. I don't love it. Let's see, is this edge perfect? Yes, that edge is perfect. This one is not. So again, I'll just take a little sliver off the side now. Because the last thing you want to do is force the sheeting, because eventually it will pucker up. And there we go. So you should have, if you have perfect fits where you can't see any gap between it, you know you got it. All right. I'm just going to mark some of the sheeting to cut it off. Actually, it doesn't matter. Cut it off. All right. So the next step for me is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin these pieces on a planer I have. So I'm going to set it up and I'll show you. So I'm going to take them down to about 40 thousandths. You know, right now, just give you the weight. Like right there is 0.95 of weight, and I'll take it off. I'll probably get it down to 0.75 of an ounce. So, but I will show you. Alright, so the planer has a model machine. One is a precision sanding drum. In here is a 320 drum with 320 sandpaper on it, and it has a table on it that you just set to whatever height you want, and you can run all the pieces through and get them perfect. So what we'll do is we'll set this. And it's very precision like. You can take off a couple thousandths at a time. Okay. So that's kind of how you set it, and you just run them through till you get them perfect. I do use it with a vacuum, which makes it really good. So you guys will have to deal with the vacuum noise. So it's really minimal dust, and so I heat up my vacuum hose just to make it a little more pliable, because it's a really tight fit. And there you go. All right, so we're starting out with, again, I use my vernier calipers to tell me what the thickness is. So that's about 64 thousandths. So we're going to take about 20 thousandths off each one of these. This one's 65, and this one's 70 something. Okay, so we're going to look to get them around that same thickness. All right. All right. All right. So I've got them down to about 45 thousandths. The machine's really good. It's a small one. To me, it works perfect. You can take some movies. I can taper flaps on it and elevators. How to make a few jigs. I'll cover that on this video though. I'll show you how I make them. All right, so we started out with 0.95. Now we're going to see. So went down to 45 thousandths from about 65. So we're down to 0.7. So just under 3/4 of an ounce. So we took off about 1/4 of an ounce. So you multiply that times 4 skins. You know, that's an ounce of weight. You know, and it's kind of just going along for the ride. So, and the other thing you get out of this, what's nice, is you look with uniform thickness. All right, so now I'm going to show you. I'll just go through one, and I'll do the rest off camera. Okay, so what I do is I line up my pieces here. And what I want to do is make sure there's no step on it at all. So that's pretty good. It's even better. All right. So I set it on the flat table, and what I'll do is this will be the bottom side. But what I'll do with my tape. So I use 2 kinds of tape here. I'll use clear tape. And I use masking tape. So for this, I kind of just, this is the back side, so I kind of just push it down and get it the way I want. All right. So I'll take my ruler and weigh this piece down since it's a little bit all over the place. That's interesting. Oh, I'm the wrong side, that's why. Well, that don't help. There we go. I wonder why the seam didn't fit good. What I'll do is I'll kind of just... Oh, that backwards. This way. Now let's just lay this out. Okay, may have to make another cut. This wood is so movable. Oh no, there it goes. Okay, perfect. Okay. Some suits. Make sure my seams are nice. Again, you want your seams to be perfectly closed without putting pressure on. Alright, so now I got it lined up the way I want. I will flip it over. Okay, first seam is really good. I make sure that it's perfectly held up. I don't feel a ridge. Now what I do, oh, it's like we're out of, not deep. Roll. So I use Scotch transparent tape. That's the stuff I use, and what's interesting is CA does not stick to it. Neither does epoxy. So it's one of those things that's good. Having these dispensers are always pretty good because they have weight on them and allows you to be able to work without anything. Alright, so I got one down. Alright, so what I do is I make sure the seam is nice and flush, no separation in it. Alright, and what I'll do is I'll line up my tape. Okay. So I make sure my seam is nearly perfect, and that's what I do. Alright, so I'm on to the next one. And all I do is make sure the seam is nice and tight, not too tight. This one doesn't like this one. Alright, this piece is a little bit all over the place, but it's okay. This one needs a little bit of help. It's okay to give it a little bit of help. Okay. Checking it. What?
I take the truck.
There you go. Okay. All right. Now what I'll do, got a sanding block. I use some 120 paper. I like a little bit rougher. just really just going over to make sure we got nice flush seams. Go lightly because you don't want to tear the wood because it is now very thin. And I always leave the dust on. So one of the problems with CA is you end up with hard spots in the wood if it goes through. Well, in this case, it's not going to go through because of the tape. So what I'll do, I like thicker CA for this evolution. Kind of what I do is I'll just split open the seam. Just run a coat of CA through the seam. I use thick CA for this. And again, for whatever reason, it does not stick to the Alright, so once I got the thick CA on the seam, I'll take a paper towel and I will wipe it into the seam. I'll do the next one. What I do is I cut the tip on a little bit of an angle so the angle falls into the groove. So I'll just push it up a little bit like that. And what I'll do is I'll just run a bead. Alright, so I got it in that seam. Now what I'll do is I'll take my paper towel and I'll rub it back into the seam. Take all the excess off, push it down. And what the dust does help the CA kick off, and the paper towel does the same thing. Try not to stick the paper towel to it. Now it's pretty dry. What I'll do is just lightly sand it, just to get rid of any of the excess CA that's sitting on top. Did have a spot that cracked, so what I'll do is I put tape on the one side of it, and I'll put some CA in there. Now the challenge is this wood is very thin now, so you gotta be careful handling it. All right. Tape comes right off. What you have is nice seams, so I'll take my sandpaper and just let it go. Be very careful because any bit of do is I'm going to trim off the edges now. Alright, so trim the edge as well. You can't feel the seam, and the seam is now not hard. Perfect. Fits right in the mold the way I want it. Still haven't decided if I'm going to mold the tips in. I have the ability to do it here. Got to take a little bit more off that edge. All right. Okay. Alright, so there is one wing skin. So I'll do the rest off camera. I don't think anybody wants to sit there and watch me do wing skins, but if you look at the weight, .65. So we're starting out with just a little more than half an ounce. So if you think about it, let's see. 0.65 times 4, 2.6 for the whole wing, and you got to figure it gains at least an ounce per panel with the fiberglass and resin. So about 4 to 5 ounces, so you're up to like a 6, 7, 8 ounce wing, which is really good, and then whatever structure you need on it. The last couple of composite wings I was able to do with a little bit more frame structure were around 15, 16 ounces with a finish on them. Very rigid, very straight. But I think this one I'm going to be able to get under at least 2, 3 ounces less. But all got to do with wood selection, and so. All right, so there you go. So hope you enjoyed watching. Next up, I'm gonna make the other wing skins off camera, and I'm gonna show you what my thoughts are on how I'm gonna design this without ribs. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed.